What is up? GoodMicWork back at you with kind of an impromptu commentary. I figured I would force out an episode 422 to you guys because if I wait until this Thursday to release my new commentary, it could be 3 hours long. And there's a lot going on in the world of wrestling. And I just got back from vacation a few hours ago and I've got to head to work. But I figured I would come up and give you guys like, you know, an episode of randomness. We're just going to talk about some general things, some of the things I missed while I was gone. And then I'll be up here later on this week back to normal with my Raw and SmackDown reviews. But I did not want to let the weekend go by without at least coming up and giving you guys something because everybody was awesome. Thank you to everyone that wished me a happy vacation. I was really only announcing my vacation on my channel so you guys would know that there would not be a commentary this week. I didn't expect to get all the vacation love. To me, it was just a programming note. So thank you to everybody that reached out to me and wished me a happy vacation and told me to have a good time and take my time and don't worry about not having a commentary up and made me feel really good. So I appreciate all of the well wishes on Twitter and on Facebook and in the comments below. That was awesome. So, you know, as my thank you to all of you, I figured I would try to get up here and talk about some of the things I missed. Now, you know, my research is a little off. I tried to look online and dig a little bit deeper into some of these issues that I'm going to talk about here. So you guys might even have to correct me on some of my facts as I talk about some of these subjects, but I'm going to discuss the Superstar shakeup that I missed last week with Raw and SmackDown, which brands got which wrestlers, and the fallout from that. I might preview the next pay-per-view, I think, which is Payback from Raw. I'll give a lot of opinions on the MARUO Ranallo JBL situation that really started to boil over while I was gone, and some comments maybe on Alberto Del Rio and Paige, Dean Ambrose and Renee Young, and maybe address even some of the YouTube problems that I've been hearing about as it relates to wrestling-related videos. So I guess the first thing we're going to talk about is the Superstar shakeup. Now, I did see most of Raw, actually, while I was in Hawaii. I just happened to be in my hotel room. We were out by the pool drinking, and then some of my family went back to their room to shower and clean up before dinner, and I just went back to my condo and chilled out and grabbed my laptop and pulled up a stream of Raw and caught about 2 hours of the show. So I did see a little bit of it. The best part of the show before I get into the Superstar shakeup, how can I not start off with the Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman segment? That was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. I'm still laughing about it because it was just so fucking over the top. I mean, I can't imagine. I haven't been home to really watch YouTube videos or read online what the reaction to this segment was. But to me, you know, my eyes were just wide open and my jaw was dropped literally through the whole segment. I don't even remember how it started. I just know that Roman Reigns got jumped backstage by Braun Strowman. He absolutely beats the hell out of Roman. And as they're like stretchering Roman out after he already took a very, very severe, brutal backstage beating by Braun Strowman, he grabs the stretcher and just wheels it right off this loading area into the garage, and you gotta think that that had to be gimmicked or that was not Roman in that stretcher because the thing just falls and goes face first. It was like something you'd see in a cartoon. It was insane, and it would get even more cartoony than that. And then just when you think they're done, I can't remember, did they go to a commercial or not during all of this while they were loading Roman Reigns up? I can't remember how all of that went, but all I know is they're putting Roman into the ambulance and then Braun Strowman's like, I said I wasn't done, and he comes barreling through again. It reminded me a lot of the segment that took place literally 20 years ago, probably to the day, somewhere around right now, with Bret Hart and Stone Cold on Raw. Bret and Austin worked the April pay-per-view, so it was probably like late April, and Bret had a bad knee, and he had to get it worked on, so they needed to write him off TV, and him and Austin had this really big brawl on Monday night, the night after In Your House. I believe it was Revenge of the Taker. That's right, because I know Taker and Mick main evented that show, or at least I think they did. Bret and Austin might have main evented. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Point is, the next night on Raw, they did this big long street fight to kind of set up Bret's injury angle, and as Austin beats the hell out of him and injures his leg, and they're reeling him into the ambulance, Austin is in the driver's seat, and he says, I told you we're going straight to hell, or something like that. The Braun Roman segment reminded me a little bit of that, and that was a nice little homage to a very similar segment that took place 20 years ago. The only difference is Austin didn't pick up the goddamn ambulance over his head and tip it over, which was the next thing we saw. You know, I don't know if this was just the frame of an ambulance. I don't even know how they did this. Certainly Braun Strowman did not lift up a goddamn ambulance by himself. So I don't know if there was maybe cables kind of pulling it down, or if it was just gutted and it was just the frame on some wheels and it was rather light and something that somebody as strong as Braun Strowman could lift up. Big Show's tipped over some shit before too, hasn't he? And I think Brock Lesnar F5'd a car. So we've seen superstars manhandle automobiles before, but this was borderline ridiculous. To see Braun Strowman next to that gigantic yellow ambulance and he's lifting it up and tipping it over, and Roman Roman Reigns is supposedly inside. That was just gold. I mean, it made me forget all about Braun Strowman's loss at Fastlane. And even when you go back and watch that match, that was a great match, you know, and I feel that, you know, when two guys go out there and perform at that level and put on such a great match, I hate that that whole match kind of goes forgotten just because everybody's mad about who won. But that match itself was very good, but I did think that it kind of harmed Braun Strowman. I didn't think it would have hurt Roman Reigns at all for him to lose to Braun, especially if he's heading into WrestleMania to defeat Taker. But despite all of that, they did a pretty good job, I would say, of bouncing back with the Strowman situation. There's rumors now that he's going to get a title shot against Brock Lesnar. We don't even know when he's going to come back to defend the belt again. You guys might know better than I have. I have not been reading wrestling news very closely in the past few days, so I don't know what the backstage or, you know, dirt sheet reports are on the plans for Brock. But Roman and Strowman, you know, I don't even know what to make of this. I'm guessing they're going to work Payback together. Am I right? I mean, what else? What other match would you do? We know Brock's not defending the title, so I guess we're going to get Roman and Strowman again, which means Strowman could lose again, especially how badly he beat the hell out of Roman in that segment. But, you know, Roman just took a beating in that, and it was so entertaining to watch. And instead of being, like, amazed at the brutality, I was laughing at this whole segment as if it was a sitcom. I found it both ridiculous and awesome all at the same time. I'm not even really shitting on it. It was just so great to watch Braun Strowman go completely batshit nuts and literally kill Roman Reigns. I joked on Twitter that he'll be out 4 to 6 years after a beating like that, and that was pretty badass. So that whole segment just had me laughing for some reason. I just could not stop laughing. That is what I will take away from this past Monday's Raw. I did not see SmackDown at all. The only thing I did is I watched just a couple of clips on YouTube, and that's it. So my SmackDown knowledge is extremely off here. But as far as the superstar shakeup goes, it wasn't a draft situation. It wasn't them drawing numbers, you know, out of a randomizer or anything like that. They were just basically making announcements. So I guess the way the superstar shakeup was going to work is that the general managers get together, supposedly behind the scenes, and work out the deal and then announce it to the fans on the show. So Raw, of course, was up first. Not everything was going to take place on Raw. Some of it was going to take place on Raw, some of it on SmackDown, which I liked, them spreading it out between the two shows. And I knew that that was going to be really bad for Raw, because what was going to happen is if all these SmackDown guys came over, the fans were going to start to freak out. Oh my God, SmackDown has nothing left, without remembering that SmackDown is the next night, and they're also going to get a chunk of Raw guys. So that was exactly what happened, especially when we saw The Miz and Maurice and Dean Ambrose come out. They got Bray Wyatt, they got Apollo Crews, they got Mickie James, Alexa Bliss, a whole bunch of guys and gals, and the fans were freaking out on Twitter. Jesus, SmackDown has nothing left. James Ellsworth is going to be the WWE champion next month because of this shit. And I was like, hold the phone, don't forget. SmackDown has a show tomorrow night, and they're also going to get some talent, and we could kind of see who some of that talent was going to be, especially when Dean Ambrose showed up. They're not going to have the U.S. title and the Intercontinental title both on Raw. Kevin Owens has got to go to SmackDown. And in a surprising move, so did Sami Zayn. Now, we've all wanted Sami Zayn on SmackDown for a long time, and considering the circumstances with the Universal title and Kevin Owens, SmackDown was actually probably a good place for him to go to as well, because now it gets them out of that rematch clause, because they don't want an Owens and Brock match right now. But technically, he never got a rematch for that Universal title, so he would be next in line, you would think. So I thought it was a good move for both guys, but at the same time, I thought the two of them were better off separated. I mean, they've been together for a long time in WWE and already had some very long feuds, and now that that's going to carry over to SmackDown, I'm never going to complain about an Owens and Sami Zayn match, but it is a match that we've seen, you know, a couple of dozen times in the last year. So I am surprised that they kept them on the same brand. SmackDown also got Rusev and Lana, and they got a couple of women as well, Tamina Snuka and Charlotte. So Charlotte did make the move to the SmackDown brand. A lot of us were speculating on that. I think that's a good move for her. You send two of the SmackDown women to Raw. Although Alexa Bliss kind of felt like it came early. I thought she still had plenty to do on SmackDown, but they moved her to Raw. Mickie James to Raw as well. Probably not too much is going to change with them. But Charlotte is the best of all of them on both divisions. She's the best female worker they have, and she's now on the SmackDown brand. They teased it too. I did see the segment. That was one of the YouTube clips that I watched of SmackDown when Shane McMahon announced that the newest acquisition was a second-generation wrestler whose father was one of the greatest of all time and is a WWE Hall of Famer, and teased them all and introduced Tamina, and then brought out Charlotte after that. Kind of reminded me of what Vince did when he announced Kurt Angle as GM and they brought out Teddy Long first. So little games WWE plays plays with the fans like that, I kind of like. Some of the announcers also moved as well. Byron Saxton got moved to SmackDown, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, David Otunga was moved to Raw, but he's going to be off of TV for a while. I guess he's doing a movie, so Booker T is going to fill in for him on Raw for the next several weeks. Raw definitely got the worst of that deal. I don't think anybody likes David Otunga. And Byron Saxton, you know, we might make fun of him, but he's not that horrible. And he'll probably pair pretty well with Tom Phillips on SmackDown. So I think it was a good move for Saxton going over to that brand. I think it'll be better for him. As far as how Raw is going to be now with Cole and Graves and Otunga, I have no idea. We know what kind of commentator Booker T is. He can be very entertaining, so he won't be so horrible for the next few weeks. But when Otunga comes in, that guy just seems like he has the personality of a bowl of oatmeal. So I don't know how, you know, Raw is going to fare with him in the announce booth, but, you know, WWE keeps him around, so whatever. Did any tag teams make the move? Let me just check again, because I had to do all this by memory. Oh yeah, a couple of them did. So Rhino and Heath Slater are also on Raw. I didn't mention that. Oh yeah, and Kurt Hawkins, I did not mention him either. Also got moved to Raw, but that's not going to be very different because he's a jobber on SmackDown and he's going to be a jobber on Raw. He was out there and Big Show knocked him out with one punch, and that was the end of that. So so much for fresh change of scenery for Kurt Hawkins helping his career. He's going to have the exact same role there, it appears. Jinder, did he move to SmackDown? I believe he did. And the New Day also went to SmackDown. That's a good move for them because they were already lost on Raw. Once they lost the tag team titles, what have they done? They were the hosts of WrestleMania, of course, but, you know, they've been floundering and haven't done anything of substance at all on Raw for a long time. So moving them to SmackDown is probably good. Kofi is out of action, I guess, for a while. He needed ankle surgery, I think. That's why they did the angle with the Revival. And there has been some talk of a Big E singles push sometime in the future. I think that would be great. I think it was a little early for him when he first got there and they were trying to push him as this monster, but now he's developed a personality. Fans know him. He's over. He's entertaining. He's great on the mic. He can talk. He's got a lot of charisma, a lot of personality. I think the guy can be a great singles wrestler if they ever choose to put him in that role. And they just might, because if Kofi's going to be out for a while, you know, that just means it's him and Xavier. And I could easily see a situation where he turns on Xavier and goes heel or something like that. And then maybe when Kofi comes back, he goes, dude, what the fuck's going on? And then they can feud with each other. And Big E can mow through both of them on his way to a substantial singles push. So who knows where that could lead with New Day going to SmackDown. The good news is for those guys, it now opens up the door for a whole bunch of options and opportunities for them to do. So I think that was a good move as well. I think that was it as far as the shakeup goes. I might be missing a name here or there. Just to backtrack on a few of them, you know, Dean Ambrose going to Raw, I thought was a good move for him for the same reasons the New Day going to SmackDown was a good move for them, because he kind of ran out of shit to do on SmackDown. Bray Wyatt kind of surprised me a little bit, and it surprised a lot of fans too. I think Bray Wyatt is one of the people that should have stayed on SmackDown. He just lost the title. He's still got a match, and that's another thing here. I think some of these guys have to wrap up their business on their respective brands before they move. Bray Wyatt has got a match with Randy Orton, that House of Horrors match that, shit, I don't even think that happens until Backlash. Or are they even going to do that at Backlash? Maybe it's on SmackDown. I don't know. See, this is why I'm unprepared for this fucking commentary. Maybe I can just pull it up here now so I don't sound like a moron. Okay, now wait a minute. Now I'm really confused. I pulled up WWE.com here. Remember my last commentary when I couldn't figure out what fucking pay-per-view went with what brand? Is this a joint pay-per-view? You got the House of Horrors match here advertised for Payback. And then I scroll down here and you also have Jericho versus Kevin Owens. You got a cruiserweight match. The Hardy Boys are defending their title against Sheamus and Cesaro. So holy shit, I don't know what the hell is going on here. So, alright, this might be a joint pay-per-view. That's fucking weird, but okay, I don't know. I guess I got to research this more. Sorry for being an idiot. I promise to have my shit together by the time Thursday rolls around. So anyway, all these guys have to wrap up their shit with their feuds before they officially move brands. So the problem with this is it kind of gives away some outcomes. I mean, can you really expect Bray Wyatt to win the WWE title and then take it to Raw, and then you got the Universal title and the WWE title both on Raw? Unless this is a way to get Brock to SmackDown somehow, but I don't think Brock is going to be working SmackDown. And same goes for Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens, although, let me click on this match here. This might not even be a title match. Yeah, it doesn't appear to be a championship match according to WWE.com. It just says United States Champion Kevin Owens versus Chris Jericho. so I'm not seeing anything about this being for the title. But anyway, some of these guys have to wrap up their shit, which I guess why this is a joint pay-per-view or whatever. I've missed TV, so they've probably explained this on Raw and SmackDown. I just wasn't aware of it. So yeah, I don't really have a major problem with a lot of the roster moves, with the exception of Bray Wyatt. I think that he could have done more on SmackDown. I think he could have regained the WWE title on SmackDown. That's what I was expecting him to do at some point. I thought he'd definitely win back the belt from Randy. And hell, I don't know when they're going to do the other matches on SmackDown. AJ Styles won a number one contenders match for the United States title, so he'll get a shot against Kevin Owens at some point in the future, and Baron Corbin might be working with Randy Orton. Am I right about that? So shit's just a mess, and as you can tell, I'm completely unorganized, and here we go. I see a couple of more names that I forgot. I completely forgot about Apollo Crews. He was actually the first person to be announced. He was announced prior to Raw, I believe. That's definitely a good move for him, and somebody said on Twitter, and I really agreed with it too, that his music is way too similar to American Alpha, and it's good to get them on separate brands, and I agree with that. And plus, I think the Raw scenery would be better for Crews in the long run. The Drifter was called up from NXT. He's now on Raw as well, so that was an NXT call-up. That was pretty cool. Kalisto moved over to the Raw brand finally. What the hell he was doing on SmackDown this whole time, I have no idea. Hopefully, Kalisto can be involved in the Cruiserweight division. That's what we thought he was going to be doing anyway, right from the start. And, I mean, it's weird for him to go back to that. He's been United States champion, and he's worked with some top guys already, but really the Cruiserweight division is the best place for him, and I think he'd be great there. So I'm glad that Kalisto got moved to Raw. And did Sin Cara get moved to SmackDown as well? I believe he did, if my memory serves. So WWE wants to continue to keep them separated so they can't reform the tag team, I guess. So things are all just jumbled up in my head right now. I feel like I got this WWE bouillabaisse spinning around inside of my skull, and it's crazy. So I'm trying to make sense of it all. So yeah, Payback is on the 30th of April. Looks like it's going to be a co-branded pay-per-view because there's matches out the ass on this thing. Backlash, I think, is a SmackDown pay-per-view, comes to us on May 21st. And then Extreme Rules, I think, is Raw, that comes to us in the beginning of June. So that's the pay-per-view schedule to the best of my knowledge. Hopefully I'm not wrong about that. But yeah, this shit's a mess. I got to organize this and get myself together for this coming Thursday, episode 423. But yeah, like I said, all in all, the roster moves weren't going to be perfect. We weren't going to agree with all of them, but there's a good deal of them that we do agree with. And we'll see how it all plays out after Payback, how all these guys fall into their roles on their brands and everything. And hopefully, this shakeup will actually make for better TV and will benefit a lot of this talent, or at least most of this talent. Some of it won't benefit, obviously, but, hopefully it will lead to good things for everyone involved, including the fans. So let's keep our fingers crossed there. Let's jump out of that whole situation because that was making my head spin there. And let me just talk about a couple of other things. Now, the MARUO Ranallo JBL situation really exploded while I was gone. Again, I'm only reading bits of news. I'm only hearing what you guys are telling me. Something definitely went on between these two. And I've said this about JBL before, this fucking bag of farts. There have been instances of this guy bullying people in the WWE going back years. The incident with the Blue Meanie at ECW One Night Stand. Justin Roberts has recently come out and talked about some stories of JBL bullying him as well. There's probably countless others. He has been stood up to before. There's the story of Joey Styles punching him in the face on one of the Tribute to the Troops tours or whatever. The story goes that he knocked him out. I don't know if I necessarily believe that he actually knocked JBL unconscious, but I definitely believe that he stood up to him and punched him in his fat fucking face. And he deserved it. And if you stand up to him, maybe he leaves you alone. I don't know. But this whole situation is so infuriating because, we've all talked about it. WWE, these anti-bullying campaigns, and yet they still have this infantile, immature attitude in the backstage area. Even with the executives, it's this carny mentality of wrestling still exists. Even though in 2017, professional wrestling is absolutely nothing like it used to be, there's still that mentality of the old days and how, hazing and bullying and ribbing, was all just part of it. And most people are expected to be able to handle this kind of ribbing. Now, MARUO Ranallo, even though I'm 1,000,000% on his side here, he wouldn't have lasted in the 90s and definitely not the 80s with some of the ribs that went on. A lot of mean-spirited ribs. Some guys are notorious for being infamous ribbers. Some are lighthearted like Owen Hart, who would just fuck with people but would never deliberately harm them or fuck their life up in any way. And then you had other people like JBL, Nasty Boys, Mr. Fuji, all sorts of crazy-ass people in the business that would just fuck your life to hell if you let them. And it was a pretty crazy environment, I would imagine, back then. So MARUO Ranallo would not have survived one single day back then. But today, you still got a few of these guys walking around. JBL, this fuck nugget, this cockwomble, this shit-spackled Muppet fart, walking around there, pushing everybody around, being a bully with this attitude of his. It's the exact type of guy that I hate. It reminds me of Ben Affleck in Dazed and Confused. I forget what the character's name is in that movie, but if anybody's seen that movie, it came out in like 93. It's a cult classic. It's a great film, set in the 70s, I think like 74. Or something like that. But Ben Affleck is this jack-off. He's a senior who actually already flunked or something like that, and he's just a dickhead. He makes me want to reach through the screen and choke his fucking neck. And JBL, when I hear stories like this, it makes me so mad. And I was always a defender of JBL. You think back to 2004, that JBL character, I actually liked that character. I thought it was a good character. The fans hated him. He had Roman Reigns level heat back then. Nobody could stand him, and a lot of their arguments were unfounded. The problem was JBL was so good at being that douchebag that he actually tricked the smarks into hating him. It was much like John Cena and Roman Reigns. They started saying things like, JBL can't wrestle, he's not worthy, he sucks, he's boring on the mic. I'm like, wrong, wrong, and wrong. First of all, he can wrestle. You can't call yourself a fan of Stan Hansen and then say JBL can't wrestle. That makes no fucking sense. They're very much alike. I argue JBL might even be a little bit better. From a physical standpoint anyway, maybe not getting over in the level of star, especially Hansen was in Japan, but as far as what he could do in the ring, I think JBL was a tiny bit more athletic, and he threw a hell of a clothesline, and he was stiff, just like Hansen was. And I always thought JBL's style was just fine. Never had any issue at all with his in-ring work. Yeah, he wasn't Bret Hart. He wasn't supposed to be. And his character, oh my God, the way he would get out there on the mic and make fans hate his guts, you know, and he's did some shitty things too. I remember him goose-stepping at some show in fucking Germany. I mean, what a dickhead this guy is. So I always came to his defense back in 2004, and I say, hey, if you look at this character, it's pretty good. You know, it's basically George W. Bush with the volume turned way up, and in a bully's body, and in a dickhead's body, and he thought he was the shit, and he had his cabinet with him, and he just exhibited this aura of this cocky Texas, just Republican prick, and he did it so well, and I enjoyed the character. You know how you have those characters that you love to hate? $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase was a lot like that. And I loved Ted DiBiase. I loved his work. I loved his character. And I hated him, but I enjoyed hating him. And that's the same thing that JBL gave me back in 2004. But in his personal life and in his backstage life and the way he treats talent and the way he hazes people has infuriated me for years. Now, I understand these are internet reports, and I wasn't there, and nobody else was either. So we only know what we hear, but wrestlers have come out, countless numbers of wrestlers over the years doing shoot interviews, telling stories about how JBL can be a huge asshole. And that's what makes me mad. And this guy's got no business bullying anybody. I don't know what Mauro Ranallo ever did to him. Anybody that's ever met Mauro just thinks he's a sweetheart of a man. He does have an issue. He's bipolar, and he also suffers from depression. And if you're going to bully somebody like that, you know, it could really set them off. And it could, you know, lead to them being affected by these mental illnesses. And, you know, JBL could have been the reason for this latest battle of depression that Mauro has suffered, you know, and I'll look at both sides of it. I've heard a few podcasters and a few YouTubers out there that say, hey, look, even though we completely understand and we sympathize with Mauro, some people believe that you should have thicker skin. And I'm one of those people as well. No bully is ever going to fuck with me. I'm not going to let them. I didn't tolerate it when I was a kid in grade school, and I certainly wouldn't tolerate it today as a grown man. And the people that feel the same way I do, that's you. That's not Mauro. You know, and he's too good for the wrestling business almost. And maybe when he got into it, he didn't realize that it's not as professional, maybe as some of the MMA fights that he's called and some of the other things that he's done. He's probably in a more professional environment. WWE, despite all of its changes, you know, and how it's a worldwide company now, it still has that old school mentality a little bit behind closed doors. And a lot of guys are still ribbed and picked on and shit like that. And Mauro Ranallo is just a guy that, you know, for lack of better words, cannot handle it. There was some other controversy with ESPN. Now, this I missed. I do know that Jonathan Coachman, from what I understand, came to the defense of JBL. Was he arguing with Meltzer? He was arguing with somebody on Twitter, and now I'm even hearing that ESPN might not even be covering WWE anymore. So why JBL is not in any trouble, I have no idea. How this guy is never in the doghouse, doesn't get heat, doesn't get suspended, certainly doesn't get fired. You know he's got a really strong position in the company if they have done nothing to him, especially when this scandal first comes out. The last thing WWE wants right now are scandals, and when other ones have come out, like with Hulk Hogan, they immediately distance themselves from him. If they will push away the fucking Babe Ruth of the wrestling business, why are they going to stick with JBL when something arguably just as bad comes out? If this was Dolph Ziggler, you know, that was bullying Mauro Ranallo, we'd all be scratching our heads being like, what the fuck is going on there? But this is JBL we're talking about here. This is somebody that's, you know, it's well within the realm of possibility that he did this because he has done it before. It's been confirmed by tons of wrestlers and a lot of other talent over the years have all said the same thing about this guy, that he can be the world's biggest prick. JBL also has a lot of supporters. I saw Kevin Nash come out and defend JBL. I saw Jim Cornette, of all people, somebody that I would expect to be on the side of Mauro Ranallo, defend JBL just because he goes way back with JBL. They have a great relationship. He's never had any issues with JBL or never seen him as anything other than a nice man, a cool guy, somebody that's funny and witty, and just as an entertaining person and a great personality to have backstage in wrestling. Jim Cornette absolutely loves the guy. So JBL does have supporters. I'm not saying that he doesn't, but he's gotten a ton of heat on social media. I think the WWE understands that the fans would love to have him back. They probably would love to have him back, but this is a situation that, you know, he probably doesn't want to be back there. I don't even know how he could work with JBL at this point. Even if they got them both in a room and they apologized, even if they did all of that, you have to wonder about Mauro Ranallo's condition. And, you know, if he gets through this latest battle of depression, he could always fall back into another one again. So some people have been brave enough to look at both sides of the coin here, and I will do that as well. I completely sympathize with Mauro Ranallo and his condition. I can't relate to it. I mentioned that in my last commentary. I've never battled any sort of bipolar disorder. I'm not depressed at all, ever. So I just don't know what that's like, but I can imagine it's pretty unpleasant. And to have a guy like JBL out there making it worse, don't forget this thing all started on Twitter, I think. JBL was even tweeting shit to Mauro Ranallo and gave him shit on the WWE Network because Mauro, I don't know, he retweeted, he got a Wrestling Observer award of some kind, best announcer or best play-by-play or something like that, and he was proud of it and he retweeted it. And, you know, WWE doesn't really like their people acknowledging Observer reports and dirt sheets and shit like that, so maybe he got a little bit of heat for that and JBL was mad at him and maybe bullied him for it. But still, that's not an excuse to bully anybody. I don't care if Mauro made a mistake. Maybe Mauro Ranallo shouldn't have tweeted it. If anybody follows Mauro, you know that he's extremely active on Twitter. He will retweet basically anybody. He is always thanking fans for their support, and he's very accessible, and you can pretty much talk to the guy on Twitter if you stay persistent enough. So, you know, maybe he, in his millions of tweets that he sends out, maybe one of them he should have rethought, and JBL gave him a little shit for it or whatever. But JBL should just keep his mouth shut in general. You're not the boss. You're not in charge of jack fucking shit. Nobody wants to hear you bitch and moan and do all of that bitching and moaning while blocking everybody on Twitter. You talk about a pussy. The guy cannot handle any criticism at all. I have never said anything deliberately bad about the guy. The worst thing I've probably ever said in a tweet was maybe poking some fun at him, maybe, but never saying anything like, this guy is a piece of shit asshole, I fucking hate him, he's the worst announcer ever. Nothing like that ever have I said about JBL, and he blocked me. Michael Dickbag Cole did the same thing, and JBL has blocked lots of other guys, lots of my fellow YouTube colleagues and podcast colleagues. He's blocked nearly all of us. And he's blocked a shit ton of fans too, and most of the time these are unfounded blocks. They might not even say something about him. He just might read a tweet that he didn't like, and he blocks them. So he is very critical, and he's very open on the WWE Network, on commentary, on Twitter, has all sorts of opinions. But the minute you want to give him something back, he blocks you like a giant floppity, sloppity vagina, because that's what he is. So I basically feel probably the same way everybody does about this situation. I try my best to be fair because, you know, we don't really know the whole story, so maybe there's more to this, but the idea of JBL bullying somebody is not that hard to imagine. So I'm inclined to believe most of this stuff. Mauro Ranallo has real issues that real people deal with. Millions of people have the same type of condition that Mauro Ranallo does, and we need to remain sensitive to that. And if you get a job, you shouldn't have to worry about somebody at your job deliberately causing you to have some sort of a relapse or fall into a bout of depression. You shouldn't have to worry about bullying at all in any environment, in any job, anywhere. It's bad enough this shit happens in sports, in the NFL. There was that one player, Richie Incognito, who I've met, by the way. Just met him last year, randomly. But Richie was bullying a player, you know, sending him horrible text messages and just saying awful things to him and, you know, basically made the guy quit, you know, and a lot of people in football are like, he needs to understand that this is a locker room and this shit's going to go on and you need to be tougher than that. But at the same time, he shouldn't have to be. He's there to do a job. He's there to play fucking football, not to deal with the bullshit and the politics going on in the locker room, you know, and having to even worry about standing up to a bully. It's not something you should have to worry about as a grown man. This is 5th grade fucking shit, and JBL should leave the guy alone. You know, you're not a tough guy if you pick on somebody that, you know, is incapable of defending themselves. That's the worst type of bully. You know, basically it's like, JBL, pick on someone your own size. And we know how bullies are and we know how they can be. And most of us know how to deal with them. But unfortunately, Mauro Ranallo didn't. And his career is now suffering for it. And WWE has lost its best announcer. The fans love this guy. We all love Mauro's work. I just remember back at the Cruiserweight Classic when he worked that with like Daniel Bryan. That was awesome stuff. And now there is a really good chance that we are never going to see Mauro Ranallo in the WWE again. And I've also read some reports that maybe WWE is trying to work something out with him so he doesn't speak publicly about this, because at some point he might do an interview. Hell, he might write a book one day and spill the beans on all this shit that went on. So WWE might be trying to work with him and say, all right, we'll let you out of your contract. Maybe we'll pay you some money. We're sorry about this whole thing. Just please sign this contract saying that you will not publicly state what really took place here, which to me just makes no sense. It would be so much easier just to fire JBL. I promise you, WWE, your company will be just fine without this dickhead. You can survive without him, believe it or not. WWE will still keep rolling if JBL is absent from your company. But I think he's been there too long. I think he's got a position for life there with the way he's in with the management and with Vince and everybody. And he's just a big part of the WWE. He's been working there 22 years, something like that. I think he came in 95, maybe 96. So he's been there a long time. So JBL has definitely put his time in the WWE, and it just doesn't seem like he's going anywhere, which is really silly, because if the WWE wants to, you know, if they want to kind of put out the fire here, fire this asshole or at least suspend him. Otherwise, it seems like you're fanning the flames, and it just doesn't make any sense. So I am not happy with JBL at all, as you might be able to tell. And when I hear stories like this, every time I hear stories like this about this guy, it just makes me shake my head and say, yep, I wouldn't survive one day in the WWE. Because I would pick up a baseball bat and knock this guy's head off the minute he looked at me sideways. I just wouldn't be able to take it. And I'd be fired because he's got a better position than me. So unfortunately, because of JBL, it looks like the fans have lost our favorite announcer. So let's all thank JBL on Twitter. Those of you who he has not blocked yet, go on Twitter and thank him for his fine work getting rid of Mauro Ranallo. Because yeah, that's exactly what the fans would want. So fuck you, JBL. And you guys let me know what you think about it in the comments below. I try to be as fair as possible here and look at both sides. But how can you not be on Mauro Ranallo's side in this situation? You absolutely have to be. You know, the guy didn't deserve this. And he was a great announcer who the fans loved and respected. And now he's gone, all because of some asshole backstage. So anyway, you guys let me know what you think about this, and some of my facts might be off here, so feel free to correct me. You guys have been able to hear so far in this episode that I'm kind of all over the place. It's the post-vacation chaos, I guess, that we all go through, and I'm just trying to get all my thoughts out here before I head to work. So anyway, if there's anything I omitted or I stated incorrectly or anything like that, please feel free to correct me below. I will not take it personally, and let me know your opinion on this whole JBL, Mauro Ranallo, WWE fiasco. Before I get out of here, just a couple of other things. You guys see the Paige and Alberto Del Rio shit. They were both wasted, or Del Rio was, and they went on, I don't know, one of those media sites where you can post videos. I don't remember what the name of it is. And he just starts kind of drunkenly ranting about the WWE and calls out Triple H, calls him a big-nosed asshole or something like that, and admits that he's drunk. He looks drunk. He sounds drunk. Paige, I think, was trying to stop the video a couple of times, but he just kept talking. These two are an absolute disgrace. I know they're going to get married and apparently they're buying a house or whatever, but they are just partying too hard and they're embarrassing themselves left and right on social media and with videos like this. I don't understand why somebody who's somewhat famous would be so stupid to post a video on social media of them being a drunk idiot. You know, I always had respect for Del Rio. I thought he was a great worker. I respect his history in the business and his family and what he can do. I think the guy's a great athlete. I think he has a good look. I think he can talk. I've always been a big fan of Alberto Del Rio. And to see him acting and behaving this way because he's dating this 25-year-old, somebody probably 15 years younger than him, and acting the way he's acting makes me just want to say, grow up, idiots, because you guys are embarrassing yourselves completely. On the other side of that, I just saw, you know, speaking of a couple that's the exact opposite of Paige and Del Rio, AJ Lee and CM Punk. I just saw on Twitter, as I'm recording this actually, I'm looking at it now, I guess AJ did a book signing somewhere, and CM Punk surprised her. She didn't know he was there, and he kind of came through the crowd. He was cutting in line of everybody, and he was wearing glasses, and he looked really excited to see her, and he ran up and gave her a hug, and then he's jumping up and down and makes her sign his book. Very cute. So if Paige and Del Rio want to know how a real couple should act, take a look at what CM Punk and AJ are doing on social media and maybe get a notepad out and take some notes. Get your shit together, both of you. Speaking of other positive wrestling couples, it was announced that Dean Ambrose and Renee Young apparently did get married. They had some ceremony, I think, in Vegas. They've been together a while. I did not know they were engaged or were even going to get married. I thought they were just dating, which kind of sucks because Ambrose got moved to Raw. And I can't remember who put up the story. I think it was No DQ, actually. And I tweeted about it, or I commented on it, that they reported that there might possibly, nothing guaranteed, nothing confirmed, but maybe there's some heat on the two of them for getting married. But if there is, fuck you, WWE. Stop doing this. Jesus. What's your problem? You got all mad when Rusev and Lana got married, decided to live their lives, and now Ambrose and Renee might have heat as well. And they moved Ambrose to Raw, so now they're separated. I mean, I know Renee is around, so she's probably not just exclusive to SmackDown and Talking Smack. She's probably at some Raws here or there to do other stuff, so maybe they're not quite as separated as some other talent, but basically they're on separate shows. And I think that's a real dick move by WWE, and it just makes me mad. So anyway, congratulations to Dean Ambrose and Renee Young, by the way. I hope you guys have a lot of success. I like you both. I think Renee is just an absolute sweetheart, and she's cute as a button, and I'd love to see her be behind the announce booth one day. I mean, I don't want WWE to lose her. She's the female MARUO Ranallo, as far as I'm concerned. We've all heard rumors of her maybe one day going to ESPN, or maybe WWE is just a stepping stone for her because she is really talented, but WWE should lock her up, keep her around, put her behind the announce desk, and let her call a Raw or SmackDown. When was the last time we had a female wrestling announcer? WrestleMania 2? I mean, Jesus, how long has it been? So, you know, I think that could be a really good move for her as well. And I like Ambrose and I like Renee, and I wish nothing but the best for both of them. The last thing I'll kind of touch on here before I get out of here, apparently YouTube has been having some problems with their wrestling videos, or wrestling commentators have had problems with YouTube. Let me rephrase that. And again, this is something that I've only kind of looked into briefly. I've seen a couple of YouTube videos about people expressing concerns about this, and I've seen some tweets. But apparently something has happened with YouTube that they've gotten a little bit worried, and they've been losing some advertisers because, you know, basically ads can be placed on any video, and maybe some of these videos have hate speech, or maybe the person doing the video is a complete asshole and uses a lot of harsh language, even harsher than I'm using now. And they're starting to restrict certain videos or whatever. So what I've seen is that a lot of YouTube videos that are, you know, under the wrestling category are going to be automatically marked as restricted, and that really drastically reduces your ad revenue, apparently. A lot of people are complaining that their latest videos aren't getting any money, you know, 10 cents, 20 cents, something like that. My last video that I uploaded last week seems normal. It's monetized. I've made, I don't know, what have I made here? $14 off of it, so that's about normal for me for just a random commentary. So I haven't experienced anything yet, and that's kind of another reason for this commentary is I'm going to upload it and just see how YouTube treats it. But apparently, you know, if you're doing wrestling videos on YouTube right now, you could be in some trouble monetization-wise. So I don't know if they're just blocking monetization altogether, or if it's restricted, or if it's less. You know, I don't get into the YouTube monetization so much. When I upload my videos, I just click monetize and upload it, and that's it. I don't go through and put in ad breaks. I've never done that, and never really researched the monetization shit anyway. I just monetize them and let it go and let YouTube do its thing. So how this is going to affect me, I have no idea. Hopefully this is an algorithm type of thing. We've already experienced the problems late last year when all of us started losing subscribers. Every time we'd upload a video, it wouldn't get as many views. I'm still suffering in that department. I've gained a little bit more ground, probably because of me being featured on TVTrax. It's gotten me some more subscribers, and I haven't been losing subscribers. I've actually been gaining 200 to 300 a month since then. But at first, when all these YouTube problems started last year, I was losing 10, 20 subscribers a day. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? So it was very concerning. So this latest one, I don't know, this ad revenue to me, if I were to lose my ad revenue on YouTube, I would continue to do it. I make a good chunk of money from my videos, decent, but nothing great. Nothing that would make me stop. I'm not relying on this money that I make off of YouTube and Patreon just pays for my website bills and, make sure I have all the correct microphones and video editing software that I need to produce these commentaries. Basically, all the money I make just stays there and goes right back into the channel. If I'm ever buying anything for the GoodMicWork commentary brand, if I'm purchasing a new intro or, buying any artwork or anything like that, I use that money to do it. So to me, it wouldn't be a deal breaker if I lost most of my ad revenue. Maybe I'd start plugging Patreon a little bit more just to try to make up for that lost money. But overall, I'm not too terribly concerned. I'm going to continue to do YouTube, even if my ad revenue is drastically affected. But hopefully it's not. And if it is, hopefully it gets back to normal at some point. So I'm not panicking yet, but I will admit that I'm a tiny bit concerned. But again, just like the MARUO JBL situation, just like the Superstar shakeup, if I said anything incorrectly or if you guys have more information that you would like to give me in the comments below, please feel free. I will not take anything personally because like I said, I only spent about 25 minutes putting my run sheet for this commentary together and did a little bit of research on each topic, and I just hit the record button and I was off and running. So I'm not as prepared as I normally am, so feel free to correct anything I said in the comments below. I think that's it. I've got to get out of here. I got to head to work. I'm not sure what my schedule is going to be next week. I would imagine I probably won't be home to watch Raw or SmackDown, but I will be up to give my reviews on both of those shows at my normally scheduled time, which usually is super early on Thursday mornings, Pacific Standard Time. So stay tuned for episode 423 on Thursday, and that's about it. So anyway, you guys take care. Thanks again for everything. Oh, I also wanted to mention, by the way, for those of you who are still with me and still listening, Brian Zane from Wrestling with Regret, he did upload some of the footage from the Internet Darling show over WrestleMania weekend, of which I made a cameo in. I'm not on camera very long, but I'm in a couple of his videos, the introduction to the whole thing, and I was in the frequently asked questions portion as well a couple of times. So if you guys want to check that out, go over to Wrestling with Regrets channel, and you'll see those videos on there. It was pretty cool to be a part of that, and hopefully next year I will be there in person. So you guys take care of yourselves, and I will catch you in just a few days for episode 423. Until next time, peace.